What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be reviewing the 1985 classic werewolf film, Silver Bullet.
In the spring of 1976, inhabitants of the peaceful town of Tarker's Mills are rocked by recent violent murders and press Sheriff Joe Haller to investigate and find those responsible. Meanwhile, a handicapped boy named Marty, who is played by Corey Haim, is very happy with his new motorized wheelchair that his Uncle Red has made for him. One night, Marty sneaks out to a remote bridge to set off some fireworks that Uncle Red has given to him and is attacked by the werewolf. Luckily, Marty shoots a rocket in the left eye of the werewolf, and it escapes. He tells his sister Jane he was attacked by the werewolf, and convinces her to seek out anyone in the town with an injured eye. She discovers that it's the local reverend who is the creature. Now the siblings have to convince Uncle Red to help them prepare for a visit by the reverend on the next full moon.
Silver Bullet is based off a short Stephen King novel called Cycle of the Werewolf. And I find that interesting because I never heard of Cycle of the Werewolf. It's not talked about or known to, the extent of something like The Shining or Pet Sematary or Carrie or It or any of the Stephen King classics that have now been remade to death and everything. So I find it interesting that this is a little bit lesser known work than usual, and I hadn't heard about it until researching this. I have not actually watched Silver Bullet until now. I saw it on cable bits and pieces and things like that. But I never actually, watched the whole thing from the beginning to the end. I knew Corey Haim was in it. I knew it was about werewolves, obviously. I knew it was based on a Stephen King. But the thing is I love werewolves. It's like my favorite creature, just in general. A monster. But I find that most movies just don't do it right. So I'm always like, I don't want to see something that's not gonna get it right, I'm a fan of the original Wolfman. I'm a fan of American Werewolf in London, and I like The Howling. I have my problems with it, but I like The Howling. However, I was always kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna be happy with the way they did Werewolves in Silver Bullet, but I'm not going to lie, after watching it tonight, I realized that it might be my favorite werewolf movie now. Or possibly a close second, first being American Werewolf in London. However, this film does not have the Rick Baker effects that are American Werewolf in London. I found that it still was pretty on par and not overdone, I think they did a good job of just not showing a lot of it too much in terms of the effects and the werewolf and everything. But really what I liked about this movie more than anything is it was a damn good story. The characters were well developed. And I get that they had a source material here that wasn't just some script. It was a Stephen King work, probably early on, obviously, if this is in the 80s. So maybe that had a lot to do with it, and they just knew how to, translate these well-crafted characters onto a script. That doesn't always happen, even in Stephen King world. I mean, it just don't. So surprisingly, I mean, I just thought the characters were very interesting. And the movie had heart. The movie was endearing and it had heart. It was sort of along the lines, I would say, of something like Monster Squad or The Lost Boys, another Corey Haim led film. And I was just kind of, I did not expect it to be this film, you know, this kind of classic 80s, I guess, youth kind of driven film that I thought it was going to be a little bit more sleazy and just desperate to be this, you know, gory sort of thing. But it really wasn't about that. I mean, don't get me wrong, the movie starts with a fucking beheading at the beginning, which was like, whoa, you know, pretty damn good. But then it takes this odd turn of like, I don't know, it's just like a charming turn, like, wow, you know, maybe it has to do with the fact that, you know, Marcus, the lead character that Haim plays, is in a wheelchair, and it adds this sort of extra kind of sympathy, maybe, like, man, you know, this kid's in a wheelchair, you know, but it has these kind of moments that are like really cool too, because, you know, like for instance, he's in a motorized wheelchair, but it's a gas-powered motorized wheelchair. Now, maybe that was like a common thing back in the day. I'm sure it was. That would never fly now with environmentalists. But the kid has a fucking motorized wheelchair. And you know, you just see him kind of cruising around on this and seeing him kind of dealing with that and being able to like climb trees and still do this shit. It just adds this extra heart to it that's like, fuck yeah, man, this kid isn't, you know, letting his problem, you know, or his disability get in his way, you know, and it's just got this extra thing to it that's more than a horror film. Again, I had no idea I was going to see something like well crafted like this. Another thing too that really took me by surprise is I didn't know Gary fucking Busey was the uncle in this film. And Gary Busey usually plays these kind of characters that are, you know, fly off the wall. He himself flies off the wall quite often in real life for having his problems with, I think, being in a motorcycle accident and head trauma. But this was obviously probably way before that. And you know, I would say Busey's quite dialed down in this film and almost is playing a Uncle Buck type of guy. Only, you know, he's a little bit more of a boozer in this. But he's got like this warmth to him. This whole movie has this warmth to it that's maybe similar to like E.T. or something. I know I'm name dropping stuff, but it's just, I guess I didn't really feel like I was going to get this classic 80s thing going on. I really thought I was getting The Howling or something done differently, and I was just surprised at how well this movie was approached. And yeah, I mean, I was a little confused, I'll be honest, about the Reverend and his situation and the werewolf. Didn't quite make the connection. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention enough, but it definitely was worth like what I saw. And you know, and another thing too is this film had a lot of different, like, the tone would change in it a lot. Like, you would get your scary kind of shocking, you know, death scenes and whatnot, and cool werewolf stuff. But also, too, the film knew how to be suspenseful, you know, and then that was interesting, too. You know, there's a really good scene where, well, basically, Gary Busey, Uncle Red, builds Marcus this even more badass gas-powered wheelchair as like a gift, and he calls it the Silver Bullet, which I'll be honest, I don't really know why. Maybe it's just the necklace he was wearing had something to do with it or whatever, but he makes this thing, it probably goes about 50 miles an hour, maybe, or 40, or maybe I'm way off, but it goes faster than the one he's in, and he's all psyched about it. And I think he's watching his friends play baseball, and he drives off, and all of a sudden the werewolf, who is the the Reverend, like, knows he's the werewolf after he saw the werewolf the night before and shot him in the eye with a firework. So now the Reverend has one eye, so he knows and he can feel it and stuff. Anyway, long story short, the Reverend in his car tries to just take out Marcus in his wheelchair while he's driving down the road, and that's a really intense scene, actually. It's kind of, out there with, like, who the fuck would do this in the middle of the day to a kid in a wheelchair? But nonetheless, it's suspenseful, and he goes into this, like, dirt, kind of like off the main road, and into this, he finds a bridge that's not built, but it's like enclosed or whatever, in this sort of wooden enclosed bridge that's not done, and it's really interesting how it's done suspensefully, because it's kind of a scene where Marcus is screaming for his life because he runs out of gas, and he's starting to threaten him and verbally abuse him, and he's basically saying, like, I'm gonna fucking get you. But he screams for help as he sees a farmer, and the whole thing is like I said, it's very, very well done in a suspenseful way. So the movie, again, it has this sort of good-hearted charm to it. It can be shocking and scary, but it's also suspenseful. So, like, again, this movie was really fucking well done. It has a very classic feel to it. I feel like you could show this movie to a lot of different people and they would enjoy it. They might laugh a little at some of the effects being dated, I suppose, but it's like, it's well made, and the acting's good and everything. So, yeah, I really liked this movie. I highly recommend checking it out. Silver Bullet, 1984, Stephen King. I don't know, man. I guess you can't beat it, So with that said, guys, I really appreciate it if you you hit a subscribe, hit a like, get the notification bell and all that, or ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. I hope you're staying safe out there, and everybody, peace the fuck out.